What's up, everyone? We are back. It's Anthony, AB Fitness Center. Today, I have a really special episode here for you guys. We're going to be talking all about eating disorders and how to overcome them. So, on the other side of this, I have one of my best trainers. I would say probably our head trainer here, Brianna. She went from an eating disorder all the way to a personal trainer with us today and has managed to lose over 80 pounds in that process. So, I'm excited to kind of dig down deep and learn more about this topic and figure out how we can help more people do that. So, Brianna, hi, how are you? How's everything going?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing well, doing well. So, tell us your story, Brianna. For everyone who doesn't know you and never heard your story before, talk to us about the beginning because we all know how effective eating disorders are in preventing people from actually getting to their goals. And I guess let's start by what is an eating disorder to you? Like, what is that kind of definition?
So, an eating disorder to me is something I believe personally that it's linked to, other mental health issues or concerns. Things like stress can definitely affect your eating. And, if it's long-term stress or something like that, long-term depression, it can actually turn into a little bit of an eating disorder. So from the beginning, I was very fit in high school. I was an athlete. I was an athlete all my life. Um, in high school, I actually watched very severely what I was eating. Um, I didn't eat too much. I would skip meals here and there. And then I went to college and, college 15, right? But it turned into where on the opposite side, now I was eating way too much. I started eating, to the point where I was almost on the verge of throwing up sometimes. And I didn't stop. I didn't really know how to stop. I don't know why I kept doing it. Um, and then, that freshman 15 just turned into 3-4 years later, a lot of weight that accumulated. And I was still in the mindset of eating a lot on some days where to the point where I felt like I was going to throw up. And then I would feel so guilty and feel so bad about myself that I wouldn't eat for a few days, maybe, more than that. And then it was just this push and pull, like eating too much and then not eating and punishing myself. And I never really knew how to enjoy what I wanted to eat without overeating. Um, and because of that, because I didn't know how to control that, I would just tend to not eat on the other days and really just punish myself for that. And I didn't really know how to get out of that mindset, but I did. So
Yeah, you definitely overcame it. And I know it's not easy to even talk about it. So I applaud you for doing this, but we're going to help so many more people by just talking about it. So now we've kind of identified what an eating disorder is and all these different ways that it affects you. And you're 100% right. It's something that goes on, inside. Like you mentioned it perfectly. You said how you used to like punish yourself and then not eat. So we got up to college. So what happened post college and kind of talk to us about like how you were feeling at that stage and then up until today.
college was a lot. I did not feel good about myself. It was visible to me, it was visible to other people, the weight gain. And I just felt so disgusted with myself, but I didn't know what to do. Yes, I was an athlete. I've had personal trainers in the past. Um, I was very fit at that time, right before college, going into college. And then, you don't have your parents cooking for you. You don't have people watching you. You're kind of just by yourself. And you don't really have anyone to say, like, hey, like, what's going on? So that was, I don't know. I'm a little lost right now. I need a minute.
It's okay. Go ahead. Go ahead. So you're in college. So now what happens once you graduate college?
So after college, I was we were in the middle of COVID when I was back with my parents, um, back in New York, right in between finishing up college. And it just COVID hit. I mean, nothing was open. There was nothing to do really. I saw all these things online of workouts to do at home, but again, I just, even though I had trainers all my life, I still didn't really know what I was doing. So I would do a little bit of it, but I didn't know what I was doing. I would go for a lot of walks and runs. Um, I went for a lot of runs actually in Kings Park because I am scared of ghosts, and I would go there and try to motivate myself to run because I would feel like something was behind me. I would do a lot of running there, but nothing really helped long term. Um, but as far as lifting weights or anything like that, I didn't have any weights personally at home with me, and I didn't really know where to start. So post COVID, um, I actually found AB Fitness. It's in my town at home. It was very close to me. So, we looked into it, gave it a try. I really liked how they did nutrition there. I've always been interested in learning more about nutrition because of what I was dealing with. So even coming into it, I had a lot of questions about nutrition. And at first I was overwhelmed. I was so overwhelmed. I didn't know how I felt about having restrictions on food and how much I could have of something. I didn't know that, if I start logging, how would I be affected if I see that I'm over? So I was a little nervous about that, but my long-term goal, at first, my long-term goal was just to lose weight in general. I wasn't even really thinking, I'm going to come out of this and have a better relationship with food.
Yeah, and that's good. That's the goal, right? So yeah, I want to go back a little bit and talk about your mindset. So now it's like, okay, so throughout this time, you leave college and you're still struggling with this. So you had obviously your ups and downs. So can we talk about those ups and downs and like how that would make you feel on a daily basis, and how were you able to, once you joined AB Fitness, kind of overcome the ups and downs on a daily basis? How did that like change?
So here at, I'll start with the before. So like I said, I would punish myself for overeating, stuff like that. I wouldn't eat, or I would try to go on runs and just really not eat the next few days to make up for how I overate. It didn't make me feel good, sleeping alone. I was sleeping way too much, or I wasn't sleeping at all, depending on what I was doing. If I was overeating, I was always sleeping. If I was under eating or not eating, I wasn't really sleeping at all. So there was drastic changes between the two push and pulls, but my self-esteem was always low, no matter which side I was on. If I overate, I felt guilty, and I was just mad at myself. Like, why are you doing this? So look what you did. Why are you doing this? And when I wasn't eating, I just kept telling myself, like, you're not eating, but you're still not losing weight. So it's not, this isn't helping you either. Um, so my self-esteem really wasn't great. I didn't feel good about myself, didn't feel good in the clothes that I wore, didn't feel comfortable going out really too much. And then when you look back in pictures, we have pictures all over my house. You look back in pictures, and that just really twisted the knife a little bit more, because I did look like this. I did have better lifestyle, a better way of living before. And then it just spiraled out, and I never understood how it happened. I don't really think I'll ever understand why it happened. And I'm okay with that, because I've made a lot of changes that I'm back in a healthy way of living. So the how and the why doesn't really affect me as much as I used to harp on it before.
Yeah, that's key. That's key. And that's kind of perfect because it leads me into what I was just going to ask you too. So, our goal at AB Fitness and anything that we do, whether you work with us online, remotely, or whether you work with us in person, is to teach you habits that are going to last long term. Because those habits, if we can educate you on how this process works and you develop these habits will stick and last long term. It's very similar to brushing your teeth. No one has to tell you, hey, Brianna, did you brush your teeth today? It's like, no, obviously you brushed your teeth today. So we want fitness to be that same way. So Brianna, now based on that, we've taught you the habits and the nutritional stuff that you need to know and the training stuff that you need to know and do on a daily basis. But because you've struggled with having an eating disorder and just struggled like wrapping your head around all this, what kind of goes through your mind on a daily basis when it comes to nutrition?
So on a daily basis, everyone is different. For me personally, do I wake up in the morning and crave a protein shake? No, not exactly. But it's something that I need to do in order to start my day. It's something that I need to do to stay in my routine. It's happened before. I'm not saying I'm perfect. Everyone's human. They're late for work. They got to run out the door. So some days I do miss that morning protein shake. And I've realized that on days where that does happen, I tend to leave work and say, oh my gosh, I'm so hungry. And I'll go grab something to eat. And sometimes it will cause me to spiral a little bit. So I know and I've learned that I need that protein shake. I need it in the morning, whether I keep extras in my car if I'm running late or something like that. I keep extras in my gym bag. I have to have something. I have to have that shake in the morning. I have to have it. Other things that really I do, I always log my food for the most part. Again, everyone is human and, no one's perfect with always logging their food. There are days where you're going to be off. When I go out to eat, I've limited the time that I go out to eat because I didn't like the feeling of being guilty. So when I do go out to eat, I do not log my food. I go out to eat maybe once or twice every 2 weeks. And that is time that I'm spending with friends and family. And it's more than just eating. It's a social life. It's what you do as a family or friends celebrating something. So I am not going to feel guilty about going out and living my life and having a social life. So for me personally, I do not log on those days. I make better choices when I'm out to eat. So that guilt won't be there as much as it used to be. I'll make better choices, I'll pick the choice with the higher protein. And when we're leaving, I do not take home leftovers. The next day, the next morning, I will not weigh myself because again, I am not going to feel guilty for going out to eat. So I won't weigh myself and I just get back on track the next morning, have that protein shake and get on with it.
Yeah, that's excellent. And people think just because you're a personal trainer and you've had all this success, I mean, you've lost 80 pounds. It's a lot of that's a lot. That's really good. But you've had all this success. So, people hearing this are probably like, well, yeah, it's easy for her, she's perfect 100%. So I appreciate your honesty and just saying like, hey, I'm a real person. I go through it too. But my kind of follow-up question to you is how do you balance that social life and your fitness life with having that like kind of eating disorder in like the back of your mind and like the past, like how do you balance it all? And like you kind of answered it a little bit, but I think you're doing a good job of like balancing what you went through in the past, having a social life, and also being this success fitness wise.
So I also do, this is going to sound very weird, but I also do have this specific pair of sweatpants that I haven't fit into for months, but I refuse to throw them away and I'm going to keep them forever because whenever I feel bad or guilty or anything for having a social life, I will put those on and just watch them fall off. So I'm going to acknowledge my progress and I take pride in it. I do still struggle some days, not perfect, but I just do a lot of things to remind myself how far I've come as a person. And with my eating disorder problems, are there days where I do feel guilty sometimes? Yes, but I quickly cut them from my brain and I just get back on track the next day. I don't weigh myself. I'll put my pants on. I don't take home leftovers. That's really my staples that I do just to make sure that I'm going to be good.
Yeah, and I love that. That's like set hard rules that you gave yourself, which is perfect. And that's like the thing that you need to put in place is like those set defining rules. So like I always have it, and I could tell everyone all mine. Brianna could tell everybody all hers. But you got to find the rules that are going to stick with you. Like for me, I always tell everybody you should not. You have the 2 day rule. You should never be bad 2 days in a row because it's so much harder to get back on track. But again, finding those things like Brianna said, putting on those pants and watching them fall off and acknowledging where you are and acknowledging the past, acknowledging where you've come from. It's a really, really smart way to continue doing this and making progress. So super proud of you for that. But my next question to you, oh, go ahead.
Along with that, I do have a very specific craving rule. I do a 2-day craving rule. So say, you know, I ask everyone what they're getting for lunch or dinner when I'm in the sessions with people. It's just a topic of conversation. I like to hear what people are eating. You know, I like to get ideas from people just like they'll ask me and I'll give them ideas. And sometimes somebody, you know, might be off track or something and they just tell me, oh yeah, like I'm gonna get ramen. Okay, now I'm thinking about ramen. So, but instead of leaving here and going to get ramen or something like that, I always say, if I really want this, I'll want it tomorrow without somebody bringing it up, or I'll really want it tomorrow. And that's when I'll go. Again, it's not every time. And most of the days, I don't even think about it the second day. I forget I even brought that up.
Gold, gold. That's a gold nugget right there. Write that down. Remember that one thing right there because that is so, so true. Well, again, most people, and we deal with a lot of people, Brianna, you know the amount of people that we interact with on a daily basis, and every person's a little bit different. But some people who've struggled with having eating disorders, they kind of always fall back a little bit. And like you mentioned, it's okay if you slip up and fall back, but I'm talking about like falling back hard, like really falling back. So what have you done and how do you kind of not fall back into those bad habits eating wise?
I so the nutrition here, I have to say, is probably the best thing that I could have ever done for myself. I know personally a lot of clients, not a lot, but a few clients that will confide in me that they have struggled with eating before. They are scared of doing nutrition. They don't really want to log everything down. And I understand that, I do, but you will never know if something is not going to work for you if you don't try it full heartedly. You can't sit there and tell me that it's definitely not for you. It's going to make you freak out, because I thought that too. But I just said, you know what? What else am I going to do? I have to try this. I have goals that I want to do. And if I want this weight loss more than anything else, then everything is going to fall into place if I give 100%. So the
Yeah.
tracking here was great. I mean, even on vacation, like Laura would ask me or text me with the gym phone and ask me what I was having. And I would freak out and be like, oh my God, I'm on vacation. How am I supposed to be good? And then it just clicked in my head, like, just because you're on vacation, you can't fall back. You have to do this every day. You have to wake up and do this every day. You have to wake up and have a protein shake and do what you need to do. For me, I told you my steps. My steps might not be your steps, but you have to find a list of things that are going to keep your head strong and your energy up and that positive attitude, and you're going to keep going through it. And then eventually you're not even going to think about those rules you made for yourself or those steps you're making. It's just going to flow. So the nutrition was the first part of that. At first, it was very hard and difficult to see. I used to eat a lot of avocados. I never knew how fatty they were. I never knew that. Once I started to log, I really just realized like a lot of the things I was eating that I thought were healthy were not. And from there, I learned everything through tracking. I learned what is really a carby food, what is really protein, what is really fat. I learned all of that through tracking myself. I didn't go through meal plans, like having somebody create a meal plan for me, because then you won't necessarily really learn. And you don't want to be on something that you feel is a diet, so you feel restricted. we are in calorie deficits, which doesn't mean, I do it with everyone in the blueprint meetings. I tell them, we're not telling you, you cannot eat this, that, or that. I have ice cream, I eat pizza, but I just make sure that I fit it in my day. And until you start logging every day, doing it daily, and seeing how food is going to affect, how each food will affect your log, you'll never understand what you can and can't have within each day. If something doesn't fit in your day, save it for tomorrow.
Brilliant, brilliant, and 100% true. And this is what clicked in my mind years ago too. Once I understood this process, and we practice flexible dieting because flexible dieting is the best way to adhere to this long term. And your body does not discriminate against foods. Like Brianna said, it's not like if you have ice cream, your body's going to freak out and say, "Oh my God, I had ice cream. I'm going to store it in the love handles." It doesn't work like that. Your body just sees calories, protein, carbs, fats. And for me, once I understood that concept, it made nutrition so much more simpler because, like Brianna said, you have to see how those certain foods fit into your log every day and into your daily nutrition every day. Because once you understand, okay, if I want this 2 slices of pizza, but wait, that's going to take up a quarter of my day, maybe I shouldn't eat that. You start to look at food a little bit different. So that seems to be one of the things that helped you to look at food differently, because a lot of people that come to us who've struggled in the past with eating disorders always say like, "Oh, I can't log, I can't log, I can't log, I just can't do it." But it's not about logging the food, it's about understanding what the food is actually made of. So how has tracking helped you, Brianna, throughout this journey and help you to stay on track then?
So everyone asks what I do for meals, and I am all over the place. Okay. My 2-day craving rule. If I really want that slice of pizza after 2 days, I'm going to get it. And I just work around it. What I do is, if I do have an off day like that, not necessarily off, but eating something that I wouldn't normally typically eat right now, if I have, my good days with nutrition. So if I do have that food there, I log that first before anything else in my day. If I wake up that morning and I really want pizza still, I'm going to wake up and I log that in. And I'm going to see, okay, what are we going to do to work around this? How am I going to reach my protein?
Yeah, that makes total sense. And what about like the breakdown of your meals and things like that? Like, a lot of people, you mentioned meal plans, they just follow meal plans. But again, that doesn't teach you nutrition. When you begin to track your protein, your carbs, your fats, and understanding how foods kind of work, because that's ultimately the way your body sees food. How do you break down your meals? Like, give us your hints here.
So in the morning, I always have a shake. Always. I need to do it. I know that I need to do it, so I do it. Um, I'll definitely have a shake, maybe a protein bar, depending on the day. Lunch, lunch is where I get a little more routine based. I have a lot of grilled chicken. I love tzatziki, and it's great. You could put on anything. I'll do a lot of grilled chicken, sometimes shrimp, really whatever my dad cooks and still has in the refrigerator. I'll kind of work around that. And yeah, dinner, I'll also do large protein base there, less carbs on the dinner. Um, and I'll have a shake right before I go to bed. That's probably a outline of my day to day.
Yeah, and that works, and it's working for you. And like I always talk about this too, it's like you kind of fall into like a rhythm with your body and with your eating schedule, right? Like for me, I had same thing. I have a shake in the morning, like my breakfast, my lunch, and even like the next kind of meal is always the same. And for me, my dinner is always the most flexible because I have a family. So whatever kind of like is going on at home, I'm gonna like have some of that. That's like my most flexible meal. But majority of the time, my first 3 meals of the day are all the same. So yeah, once you kind of fall in that routine with it, it does make it a little bit easier to kind of understand how it works or what to kind of stick with. But I want to shift gears a little bit and talk about the bad day. So people with eating disorders, and they beat themselves up and so bad when it comes to the bad days. So Brianna, how do you deal with a bad day? How does that? What happens? Because like you said, you're not perfect, and they happen to all of us. But someone who has struggled with this, how do you deal with having a bad day right now?
Um, Having a bad day. Sometimes I just need a break. Sometimes I need a break from logging. It doesn't really last more than 3 to 4 days, but sometimes I just need a little break. I'll keep myself on track. Not that I know that for sure, but I'll keep myself in check for 4 days and, let your body and mind feel what it wants to feel. Sometimes you just need a break just to take a step back and say, okay, there's a lot of emotions going on. Let's just have them process. Um, I try my best and not to overeat. Whenever I feel the need or urge to eat something, super crazy, or after I ate, if I want to eat something else and I already had dinner and I want like a second dinner or something, I'll get busy. I'll run in the shower or something before I could start eating again, or I'll run out the door and go to the gym. Just something to keep myself busy. Um, a busy mind is the best thing for you in times like that. I don't think personally isolation is good when you're in days like that. You're just going to think a lot. You have a lot of thoughts going on. Some of them, most of the time, are irrational. So alone time, yes, is great. But in times like that, it's best to, be surrounded by people, do other things, take a walk at the beach, do something else, do something that doesn't include going out with your friends, because then, there's food there, stuff like that. And on bad days, that could get a little out of control. So I just do stuff outside in areas that, don't have food around that I can just snag and go.
Yeah, and listening to you and listening to this, it seems like you're hyper aware of how you're always feeling. It's like it's something that you pay attention to. Like, okay, I'm feeling this way today. Like you're hyper aware of it. But how do you end up not letting that overcome you and getting back on track when you have like went over? So listen, you lost a lot of weight. 80 pounds is a lot of weight. Like you are a completely different person from when I first met you to today. Like completely different. Like even the way you speak is totally different. So you being very hyper aware of your feelings constantly. How do you get back? How do you not let yourself have more than those, you kind of get what I'm asking you, right? Like how do you get back on track when you just had bad days?
Because even when I have really bad days now, I just think of it as, I'll go through my pictures. I have loads of transformation pictures in an album that I just look at and I look at and I look at. A few months ago, I did have a little bit of a bad few days. I was very bloated and I looked at myself in the mirror compared to how I looked over summer. And I was like, wow, I need to get on track. Like, what am I doing? I just realized how hard I worked to get to where I am. And am I going to let a slip up, a bad day turn into 18 months of hard work and just throw that away? Like, I can't do that. I worked so hard to get here that I can't fall back.
Yeah, very cool. That's awesome. That's a great answer too. So let's shift gears a little bit to the working outside of it. So you mentioned before that you used to go to a really scary park and run away from ghosts to try to lose weight and punish yourself and all this. So we've introduced strength training to you and the basis of what ultimately changes your body and your metabolism. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about how strength training helped you in this scenario. And well, take it away.
All right. So, strength training is great. I loved being in here. I loved getting higher in weights. I loved going up in weights. It made me feel stronger every time. And it honestly released so many emotions. It was, I left so zen. I felt great leaving the gym here. There's been sessions that I left literally on the verge of crying because working out, I just took all my anger, whether it was on myself or other things around me, my anger, everything. I just being sad, being lonely, anything like that. I always took it out here and I loved it. I loved how it felt. I learned the proper forms for everything. at first, when I first started joining here, I wanted to work out more. And I said, I'm really gonna let me go to the gym. I'm gonna go to the gym on the side and come here. And I went to the gym and I felt so out of place. It actually backtracked me a little bit mentally because you go to the gym, it's a great environment to be in. It can be motivating, but it can be very, very scary. It can, shoot your self-esteem down, seeing all these fit people working out and, just looking so great. It can shoot you down. And I don't think that that's talked about too much. So then that was it for the gym for me for then. I didn't, other gyms, commercial gyms, I would just do my sessions here and that was it. And the more I started coming here and learning the form of everything, I felt more confident and I did want to work out more. So I would just go to those other gyms, start working out, not every day, but I would do my 3 sessions here a week. And then when I was angry or anything and didn't have a session booked at AV, I would go to those commercial gyms and do that. But quite a few times I did feel a little defeated of being there around such fit people that were in a lot better shape than I was.
Yeah, so it seems like the strength training really gave you that outlet to get your frustrations out and, ultimately change the shape. So let's talk about that because we didn't really get into that quick. So when you just did cardio versus when you actually just did strength training, how did your body respond? And did you start noticing changes faster? What happened?
I noticed changes a lot faster with the weight training, the strength training. Cardio really didn't do anything for me. Um, I know everyone talks about this runner's high. I've never gotten it. I always had the worst time ever. Okay. It was not a fun time. I hated it. I just did it to get myself out of the house, but I hated it. I didn't get anything out of it. I tried to get faster each time. That never even happened. I still stayed the same pace I started off at. There was no changes there. So it wasn't anything fun for me because I couldn't see any results from it. Doing it physically, there were no results. And my body changes, there was none. Whereas, when I was here, within the first 3 months, you could really see the changes. Even before the 3 months, you could see changes because weights were becoming lighter for me and I was able to go up. Whereas compare that to the running, there was no change at all. It was boring. I lost interest. It just wasn't working for me. But yeah, the weight training within 3 months, probably you could see a large amount of change.
Yeah, I use your video of you like hip thrusting like 500 pounds in almost all of our content. So yeah, just putting that out there. Brianna's very, very strong. And you mentioned it before too. You were an athlete, you were a really, really good athlete. So it's almost like I guess it gives you that structure to your working out and to your fitness that you used to have when you were an athlete, correct?
Yes. I also felt with the working out, not that this goes for everybody, but with working out, I did feel because I became so active so quickly. That was a major part in relieving some of the guilt I had because I was moving, I was doing a lot, and I was lifting crazy amount of weights over time. So as far, now if I do go over a little bit within each day or so, it's not what it used to be.
Yeah, agreed. And beautiful answer. Really, really beautiful. And I'm proud to hear you talk about it like this because I know what you kind of went through and how you struggled. So it's nice. It's really good. So I want to end off on this because this is one of the things that we get all the time. People say mentally they struggle with this. And again, you lost 80 pounds. So you probably have struggled with this too before, after you kind of mentioned in the beginning, but weighing in. Now, I talk about weighing in very strategically. You get up in the morning, you do number one, number two, you get on the scale, you write down the number, and you continue about your day. You don't pay attention to that number. I realize and I understand that that's not as easy for some people. They get fixated on what that number says and they make that number define what they say. But I believe by weighing yourself every day and every morning like that, you can get an accurate description of what's going on in your body. But I realize, like I said, people who have struggled with this in the past, it's very, very difficult to do that. So you lost 80 pounds. When do you weigh in? Do you weigh in? And how often are you actually doing it? So share your secrets now, Brianna, because a lot of people always give us this grief. And I mean, you know what I'm saying.
Yes, I do it the first day of every month. That's a definite, no matter what goes on, and New Year's Eve, I'm sure we were all having a few drinks. New Year's Day, I weighed in because I need that data for every first day of every month. I need that. So rain or shine, I'm weighing in. All right. I have rules with weighing. Like I said a little earlier, the day after I eat out, I enjoy one of those meals, eating out with my family or friends. I do not weigh. I do not weigh in unless it is the first day of the month where I know I have to. I do not weigh myself. I don't want to feel guilty for what I did. I don't want to harp on it. I just want to get back on track and go about my day. I don't even want to think about yesterday. It's easier said than done, but the not weighing in that day definitely helps. Throughout the month, I'll really weigh when I want. Other than doing it the first on each month, I don't necessarily have set days where I weigh in. Yeah, I definitely do it on the first. Other times it's just kind of sporadic, but I always make sure I log it. Sometimes if I'm looking at an old transformation picture, I see what day it is of that month. I'll try to match that day if it falls in line. So if it was the 7th of last March, I'll try to do the 7th of this month.
Yeah, I mean, that's really good, Brianna. And like you said, it just helps you to stay on track. So on the days, like let's just say, for example, the first was yesterday and you went out to eat the day before that. So now you get on the scale. Do you let that number affect you now? Like how did you get over that barrier of letting that number affect you?
Honestly, this is gonna sound really crazy, but I put my
It
AirPods
worked, so it can't be that crazy. It works. So go ahead.
I put my AirPods in and I blast music so it keeps my mind very frazzled. I write down the number in a notepad and I leave it in my room until I get back on track and I'm able to look at that number, log it, and say, okay, that was last week.
Yeah, yeah, and exactly 100%. And that number, and a lot of people, it's easier said than done, but that number does not define you because that number that you see, you could be holding water for whatever reason. For females, it could be because of that time of the month. Maybe you haven't went to the bathroom fully yet. I mean, there's days I'm up 2 pounds for no reason, and then the next day I'm down 2 pounds. So like it's totally normal to have those fluctuations, but that data that you get is just kind of letting you know that you're on the right track and letting you know, okay, I'm actually in a calorie deficit. Okay, I'm actually getting results. So super proud of you, Brianna. I mean, you've come with such a long, long way. So it's nice. So I tried to summarize everything you said and like pull out like the golden nuggets. You're gonna summarize it for us too. But my whole summary, my big takeaway was to be hyper aware of your feelings when you struggle with having an eating disorder. Be hyper aware of how you feel around food and set hard rules with yourself based on what triggers you and learn how to get out of that and change your state. So that was kind of my big takeaways from this. But Brianna, if someone listening to this who's struggling with this, what would be your best piece of advice for them going forward and getting success the way you have?
I definitely would not be so against the nutrition from the start. I would definitely give it a try because you don't know if it's not gonna work for you. You can't full-heartedly sit there and say that this isn't gonna work for you and this won't help you and it's gonna make you worse because you don't know that. You didn't even try. And if
Yeah.
nothing else
Yeah.
is working, then you have nothing to lose, but everything to gain.
And there might be other elements of it that you might be able to take away and then set those hard rules like we talked about. So like Brianna said, Now Brianna understands that avocados, even though they're a healthy food, they're very high in fat and they can alter her day dramatically. But if she would have never went through this process, she would have never known that. So now she knows, okay, if I want an avocado, I have to eat leaner throughout the rest of the day. The same way Brianna is being hyper aware of her feelings, is she's also being hyper aware with her nutrition. So I don't think that that's an issue, and I think that that is a really, really good way to look at it and use your body as kind of like a learning experiment and look at food differently than just, you know, pleasure, as what most people do. And Brianna has those days, like she mentioned it, I go out for my friends and I don't track anything that day. And those are my days and I don't feel guilty and I do it. And that's a system that works for her. Right? Obviously, she was able to lose over 80 pounds. So, yeah, 100% and change her whole life. But now, Brianna, I have to ask you this. As a trainer now, how does it feel to be on the other side of it to help other people with that?
Sometimes, honestly, sometimes it feels a little crazy. Sometimes it feels very surreal. But that's what we're here for. And, I, if I could offer any suggestions, everyone is different. So what works for me might not always work for the average person, but I'll offer anything that helped me to anyone. That's what we're here for.
Awesome. And if you guys are interested, you can just click those links below. And until next time, Brianna, super proud of you. Thank you for coming on, and we will catch you guys on the next one. Bye. Our overcrowded personal training gym is in need of trainers. We are drowning in new clients that want and need instruction, and we need you. Certification is a plus, but not necessary. We are growing fast, and there are many opportunities for growth inside our company. So send me a message now if you are interested in working with the best.